Good morning and welcome, brothers and sisters, back to another Life Urantia book reading. And today, as you can see, we will read about materialism and the vulnerability of materialism. So let's go. I will share screen so that you can read along with me. All right, materialism. And this is still from paper 119 and 95. So 195. Chapter 6, Materialism. Scientists have unintentionally precipitated mankind into a materialistic panic. They have started an unthinking run on the moral bank, of the ages. But this bank of human experience has vast spiritual resources. It can stand the demands being made upon it. Only unthinking men become panicky about the spiritual assets of the human race. Well, as a matter of fact, the science as we now experience, that is a type of science in which God is not added to it. So there's no spiritual component added to the science that we are now facing for some decades. And the scientists that are running this science, they indeed are afraid of the potentialities that are stored in the human race. We are far more than we think that we are. When the materialistic secular panic is over, the religion of Jesus will not be found bankrupt. The spiritual bank of the kingdom of heaven will be paying out faith, hope, and moral security to all who draw upon it in his name. And it is stating between quotation marks. No matter what the apparent conflict between materialism and the teachings of Jesus may be, you can rest assured that in the ages to come, the teachings of the Master will fully triumph. And this is also because more and more people, like me, my fellow brothers and sisters, who are presenting bits and pieces of the information written in the Urantia book, is coming more and more into the open. There are more people whom are bringing forth the information about the life and teachings of Jesus. The more we get to know what the religion of Jesus is, the better, and the more we can transform nowadays Christianity, that in actuality contains a lot of the teachings and writings and sayings of Paul of Tarsus. Paul of Tarsus, had a certain idea and image about Jesus. He never met Jesus. All that he knew about Jesus came straight from Simon Peter. And because of that, Paul of Tarsus again created his own idea, understanding, image of Jesus. And with this, unfortunately, the People got an one-sided image of who Jesus in actuality is. But the teachings will come back, and the living religion of Jesus will triumph again. And Christianity as we know it today will completely transform back into the original teachings of Jesus. I continue, in reality, true religion cannot become involved in any controversy with science. It is in no way concerned with material things. Religion is simply indifferent to, but sympathetic with science, while it supremely concerns itself with the scientist. This means in actuality that as long as we add the spiritual side to science, which means as long as we add God into the equation, then we can uplift science into new levels of understanding and using. The pursuit of mere knowledge without the attendant interpretation of wisdom and the spiritual insight of religious experience eventually leads to pessimism and human despair. A little knowledge is truly disconcerting. At the time of this writing, the worst of the materialistic age is over. The day of a better understanding is already beginning to dawn. We are in this phase right now because there are more and more um, brothers and sisters coming with debates and questions about science um, and technology and the ethics around it. And more people are starting to see that a lot of science and technology is in actuality based on someone else's idealisms. And these idealisms are coming from a small group of people that have a certain idea about life, about this world, about the human race, and they created a idealism that is not really based on what truly um, is needed for the humans to progress and grow into new and higher levels of spiritual human beingness and understanding of whom they as a spiritual being are, as well as whom God is, and how um, God sees the things, because he has a different way of approaching than we have. Um, the Bible says his ways are higher than ours. So, yeah, but thankfully, the framework that has been built by these people, which is a small group, is collapsing, and the cracks becoming more and more. So that's a good sign. And hopefully, these brothers and sisters will one day wake up to the fact that all that they had in mind was in actuality a idealism that came from their emptiness. A little knowledge is truly disconcerting. At the time of this writing, the worst of the materialistic age is over. The day of a better understanding is already beginning to dawn. The higher minds of the scientific world are no longer wholly materialistic in their philosophy, but the rank and file of the people still lean in that direction as a result of former teachings. But this age of physical realism is only a passing episode in man's life on earth. Modern science has left through religion the teachings of Jesus as translated in the lives of his believers untouched. All science has done is to destroy the childlike illusions of the misinterpretations of life. Science is a quantitative experience, religion is a qualitative experience. As regards man's life on earth, science deals with phenomena, religion with origins, values, and goals. To assign causes as an explanation of physical phenomena is to confess ignorance of ultimates and, in the end, only leads the scientist straight back to the first great cause. The universal Father of Paradise, He is the great cause and source of the living light and life. The violent swing from an age of miracles to an age of machines has proved altogether upsetting to man. The cleverness and dexterity of the false philosophies of mechanism belie their very mechanistic contentions. The fatalistic agility of the mind of a materialist forever disproves his assertions that the universe is a blind and purposeless energy phenomenon. The mechanistic naturalism of some supposedly educated men and thoughtless secularism of the man in the street are both exclusively concerned with things. They are barren of all real values, sanctions, and satisfactions of a spiritual nature, as well as being devoid of faith, hope, and eternal assurance. One of the great troubles with modern life is that man thinks he is too busy to find time for spiritual meditation and religious devotion. Um, as a matter of fact, humanity has created a world of distraction. This world is in such a way by humans created that they do not have to make time for meditation and for going into themselves and making a living connection between them and God, the Universal Father Himself. Humanity has created a world in which they go along with things of which they think are important, and they have set aside this deep knowing that they are a child of God, and they have set aside to be this conduit for the Universal Father, better known as God the Father in this world. Because we are a conduit. We receive from God, we uh, house this, and we also bring it into manifestation. So that is what I mean with conduit. All right, materialism reduces man to a soulless automaton and constitutes him merely an arithmetical symbol finding a helpless place in the mathematical formula of an unromantic and mechanistic universe. But whence But whence comes all this vast universe of mathematics without a master mathematician? Science may expatiate on the conversation of matter, but religion validates the conservation of men's souls. It concerns their experience with spiritual realities and eternal values. The materialistic sociologist of today surveys a community, makes a report thereon, and leaves the people as he found them. 1900 years ago, unlearned Galileans surveyed Jesus giving his life as a spiritual contribution to man's inner experience, and then went out and turned the whole Roman Empire upside down. But religious leaders are making a great mistake when they try to call modern man to spiritual battle with the trumpet blasts of the Middle Ages. Religion must provide itself with new and up-to-date slogans. Neither democracy nor any other political panacea will take the place of spiritual progress. False religions may represent an evasion of reality, but Jesus in his gospel introduced mortal man to the very entrance upon an eternal reality of spiritual progression. So to say that a mind, between quotation marks, emerged from matter explains nothing. If the universe were merely a mechanism and a mind were unapart from matter, we would never have two differing interpretations of any observed phenomenon. The concepts of truth, beauty, and goodness are not inherent in either physics or chemistry. A machine cannot know, much less know truth, hunger for righteousness, and cherish goodness. Science may be physical, but the mind of the truth discerning scientist is at once supermaterial. Matter knows not truth, neither can it love, mercy, nor delight in spiritual realities. Moral convictions based on spiritual enlightenment and rooted in human experience are just as real and certain as mathematical deductions, based on physical observations, but on another and higher level. If men were only machines, they would react more or less uniformly to a material universe. Individuality, much less personality, would be non-existent. The fact of the absolute mechanism of paradise at the center of the universe of universes is the presence of the unqualified volition of the second source and center, which is God the Eternal Son, makes forever certain that determiners are not the exclusive law of the cosmos. Materialism is there, but it is not exclusive. Mechanism is there, but it is not unqualified. Determinism is there, but it is not alone. The finite universe of matter would eventually become uniform and deterministic. But for the combined presence of mind and spirit, the influence of the cosmic mind constantly injects spontaneity into even the material worlds. Freedom or initiative in any realm of existence is directly proportional to the degree of spiritual influence and cosmic mind control. That is, in human experience, the degree of the actuality of doing the Father's will. And so, when you once start out to find God, that is the conclusive proof that God has already found you, because God, the universal Father, is constantly knocking at our door till the moment comes that his children are opening the door to him. And so we are searching for God, but God also is searching for us. And he is our whole life doing its utter best to get our attention. But because, again, humanity has created a world that is completely based on distraction and materialism and the importance of materialism, humanity has drowned itself into materialism and so only sees materialism instead of finding God in themselves. And God is still knocking at your door until the moment you come to the realization, like, maybe I cannot and am not able to live my life without the leading hand of this amazing and endlessly loving universal Father, better known as God in this world. And so let's open the door to Him and for Him so that He can walk into my life and can help me and guide me. And in togetherness, we can create the things that He loves to see manifest into the matter realm. All right, let's go to point 7, chapter 7, which is all about the explanation of the vulnerability of materialism. How foolish it is for material-minded men to allow such vulnerable theories as those of a mechanistic universe to deprive him of the vast spiritual resources, of the personal experience of true religion. Facts never quarrel with real spiritual faith. Theories may better that science should be devoted to the destruction of superstition rather than attempting the overthrow of religious faith, human belief in spiritual realities and divine values. As a matter of fact, this world that humanity has created is still unto the day of today loaded with superstition. And this is, lovely brothers and sisters, something we have to leave behind us. Superstition did not bring us that far. Superstition in actuality creates soul stagnation, stagnation in the growth of our soul. Science should do for man materially what religion does for him spiritually. extend the horizon of life and enlarge his personality. True science can have no lasting quarrel with true religion. The, in quotation marks, scientific method is merely an intellectual yardstick wherewith to measure material adventures and physical achievements. So, better said, science all comes from the brain, as how the brain interprets the outcomes and what the eyes are observing. And what the eyes are observing, the brain is making its own interpretations of that and creates its own outcome. And if you add the spiritual component to it, then you dive deeper into it and you start to understand it from a spiritual perspective and not only from the brain perspective, so the intellect. But being material and wholly intellectual, it is utterly useless in the evaluation of spiritual realities and religious experiences. The inconsistency of the modern mechanist is, if this were merely a material universe and man only a machine, such a man would be wholly unable to recognize himself as such a machine. And likewise, would such a machine man be wholly unconscious of the fact of the existence of such a material universe? The materialistic dismay and despair of a mechanistic science has failed to recognize the fact of the spirit indwelt mind of the scientist, whose very supermaterial insight formulates these mistaken and self-contradictory concepts of a materialistic universe. Paradise values of eternity and infinity of truth, beauty, and goodness are concealed within the facts of the phenomena of the universes of time and space. But it requires the eye of faith in a spirit born mortal to detect and discern these spiritual values. The realities and values of spiritual progress are not a, between quotation marks, psychologic projection, a mere glorified daydream of the material mind. Such things are the spiritual forecasts of the indwelling adjuster, the Spirit of God living in the mind of man. And let not your dabblings with the faintly glimpsed findings of, between quotation marks, relativity disturb your concepts of the eternity and infinity of God. And in all your solicitation concerning the necessity for self-expression, and do not make the mistake of failing to provide for adjuster expression, the manifestation of your real and better self. And adjuster is the God the Father fragment in us. The adjuster is how we experience God in us. God lives in us, God moves through us, God exists through us and in us. As we are in God, as we are moving through God, and as we are existing in and through God. And that is what Jesus said. If you see me, you see the Father, because I am in the Father and the Father is in me. If this were only a material universe, material man would never be able to arrive at the concept of the mechanistic character of such an exclusively material existence. This very mechanistic concept of the universe is, in itself, a non material phenomenon of mind. And all mind is of non material origin, no matter how thoroughly it may appear to be materially conditioned and mechanistically controlled. The partially evolved mental mechanism of mortal man is not over endowed with consistency and wisdom. Man's conceit often outruns his reason and eludes his logic. The very pessimism of the most pessimistic materialist is, in and of itself, sufficient proof that the universe of the pessimist is not wholly material. Both optimism and pessimism are concept reactions in a mind conscious of values as well as of facts. If the universe were truly what the materialist regards it to be, man as a human machine would then be devoid of all conscious recognition of that very fact. Without a consciousness of the concept of values within the spirit-born mind, the fact of universe materialism and the mechanistic phenomena of universe operation would be wholly unrecognized by man. One machine cannot be conscious of the nature or value of another machine. A mechanistic philosophy of life and the universe cannot be scientific because science recognizes and deals only with materials and facts. Philosophy is inevitably superscientific. Man is a material fact of nature, but his life is a phenomenon which transcends the material levels of nature in that it exhibits the control attributes of mind and the creative qualities of spirit. The sincere effort of men to become a mechanist represents the tragic phenomenon of that man's futile effort to commit intellectual and moral suicide, which is now going on, as a matter of fact, in as how this is described. We can see in the days we are living that there is a form of suicide going on in the scientific community because what they thought is not how it works. So but he cannot do it. So if the universe were only material and man only a machine, there would be no science to embolden the scientist to postulate this mechanization of the universe. Machines cannot measure, classify, nor evaluate themselves. And this is the lie in actuality, that they try to make us believe that machines are able to do this. But this is not the case, and we should see this. Machines cannot measure, classify, nor evaluate themselves. And this is the whole danger and also the lie behind artificial intelligence. If you are asking AI a question and you get an answer, this answer is in actuality based on the fact that artificial intelligence is programmed with all the millions of beliefs, assumptions, and um, ideas that directly come from ourselves. So, artificial intelligence is not giving a unique answer to a question we are asking it. And it's already been proven by many people that um, artificial intelligence is not able to give an answer that uh, and information that we do not know yet. Again, artificial intelligence is nothing more than hardware, firmware, and software programmed with all the uncountable millions of ideas, assumptions, and beliefs of humans themselves. So if you ask a question to artificial intelligence, you are in as a matter of fact, you are getting an answer that was already created by someone else, some other human. And that belief or assumption of the other human is the AI telling you. So this is what we get to see, and this is something we need to know so that we stop value artificial intelligence. And this artificial intelligence is now pushed tremendously. Why? Because those who are standing at the top in this world do not want that many people are starting to open the door to God and start to make a connection with God. That is why they are pushing this artificial intelligence and are pushing us to use that instead of using the connection between us and God. All right. Um, Such a scientific piece of work could be executed only by some entity of supermachine status. If universe reality is only one vast machine, then man must be outside of the universe and apart from it in order to recognize such a fact and become conscious of the inside of such an evaluation. If man is only a machine, by what technique does this man come to believe or claim to know that he is only a machine? So that is something you can ponder upon. This is a very good question, by the way. So I repeat this because this is interesting. If man is only a machine, by what technique does this man come to believe or claim to know that he is only a machine? Is a machine able to know this? No, unless it's programmed in such a way. The experience of self-conscious evaluation of oneself is never an attribute of a mere machine. A self-conscious and avowed mechanist is the best possible answer to mechanism. If materialism were a fact, there could be no self-conscious mechanist. It is also true that one must first be a moral person before one can perform immoral acts. A machine can never perform immoral acts because it's programmed in a certain way. It gets input, but it cannot think of itself, so it cannot understand what morality is and what immoral is. So, what moral, a machine never can find out the difference between moral and immoral unless it is programmed with the information. The very claim of materialism implies a supermaterial consciousness of the mind which presumes to assert such dogmas. A mechanism might deteriorate, but it could never progress. Machines do not think, create, dream, aspire, idolize, hunger for truth, or thirst for righteousness. They do not motivate their lives with the passion to serve other machines and to choose as their goal of eternal progression the sublime task of finding God and striving to be like Him. Machines are never intellectual, emotional, aesthetic, ethical, moral, or spiritual. Art proves that man is not mechanistic, but it does not prove that he is spiritually immortal. Art is mortal morontia, the intervening field between man, the material, and man, the spiritual. Poetry is an effort to escape from material realities to spiritual values. In a high civilization, art humanizes science. So this is very important to understand, especially in the day and times that we are in which the top of this world is trying to derail humans from their humanness. We are seeing that the majority of humanity is not realizing that they are going the road of dehumanization and that they are not realizing that they are giving up and giving away their uniqueness of being a human that is able to create, to feel, to have morals, to make art, and to express the thoughts and ideas and impulses that God is giving to us and through us. A machine is not able to do this. Never. Um, Art represents the human and time-space evaluation of reality. Religion is the divine embrace of cosmic values and connotes eternal progression in spiritual ascension and expansion. The art of time is dangerous only when it becomes blind to the spirit standards of the divine patterns which eternity reflects as the reality shadows of time. True art is the effective manipulation of the material things of life. Religion is the ennobling transformation of the material facts of life. And it never ceases in its spiritual evaluation of art. Um, Uh-oh. How foolish to presume that an automaton could conceive a philosophy of automatism, and how ridiculous that it should presume to form such a concept of other and fellow automatons. Any scientific interpretation of the material universe is valueless unless it provides due recognition for the scientist. No appreciation of art is genuine unless it accords recognition to the artist. No evaluation of morals is worthwhile unless it includes the moralist. No recognition of philosophy is edifying if it ignores the philosopher. And religion cannot exist without the real experience of the religionist, who, in and through this very experience, is seeking to find God and to know Him. Likewise is the universe of universes without significance apart from the I Am, the infinite God who made it and unceasingly manages it. Mechanists, humanists tend to drift with the material currents. Idealists and spiritists dare to use their oars with intelligence and vigor in order to modify the apparently purely material course of the energy streams. Science lives by the mathematics of the mind. Music expresses the tempo of the emotions. Religion is the spiritual rhythm of the soul in time-space harmony with the higher and eternal melody, measurements of infinity. Religious experience is something in human life which is truly super-mathematical. In language, an alphabet represents the mechanism of materialism, while the words expressive of the meaning of a thousand thoughts, grand ideas, and noble ideals, of love and hate, of cowardice and courage, represent the performances of mind within the scope, divined by both material and spiritual law, directed by the assertion of the will of personality, and limited by the inherent situational endowment. The universe is not like the laws, mechanisms, with and the uniformities which the scientist discovers and which he comes to regard as science, but rather like the curious, thinking, choosing, creative, combining, and discriminating scientist who thus observes universe phenomena and classifies the mathematical facts inherent in the mechanistic phases of the material side of creation. Neither is the universe like the art of the artist, but rather like the striving, dreaming, aspiring, and advancing artist, who seeks to transcend the world of material things in an effort to achieve a spiritual goal. The scientist, not science, perceives the reality of an evolving and advancing universe of energy and matter. The artist, not art, demonstrates the existence of the transient Moronsia world intervening between material existence and spiritual liberty. And what the Morontia world is will be explained later on. The religionist, not religion, proves the existence of the spirit realities and divine values, which are to be encountered in the progress of eternity. And with this said, I have come to the end of this book reading for today, which was all about materialism and the vulnerability of materialism. And as last, I want to say thank you so much for listening to this online book reading, this live book reading. Let all the words sink into your mind, heart, and soul, and ponder upon each and everything that you have heard today. Um, and I want to advise you or stimulate you or encourage you to also read this text for yourself by going to the Urantia book online and start reading the text yourself too. So thank you so much, and see you next time. The next time will be all about secular totalitarianism. Thank you, and I wish you all a beautiful, joyful, loving day, and God bless you.